Good morning, gentlemen, and thank you for being part of 30 years of Southern Farming System celebrations. First of all, to Bruce Wilson, OAM, who put a lot of work into Southern Farming Systems before it even existed. Bruce, what inspired the formation of Southern Farming Systems?
Basically, Scott, we were growing some pretty good crops on the good country. We had the wonderful agronomist in Geelong, Bruce Whiteman, and he was saying, well, it's only worth cropping on the good country. The rest, which is most of the property, is in district really, in the Western District, shouldn't be growing crops. And that sort of birchip had started, and we somehow, I think I was mixed up with the Grains Group and things in Melbourne, and got told again that, yeah, we should only be growing oats down there and things. So the local VFF branch, two of the early Rowan Peel and Dave Langley, and we decided to do something about it and start a group. And I think at about that time, Steve Vizard had bought the Roxby property and had a foundation there. It was probably, and Mr. Hacking on my left was on that advisory board of that. And so we somehow managed to impose ourselves down there. And that was the start of our first site. I mean, we had no money. We were very good. Actually, BP gave us a first grant because they were getting away from energy in those days. Landmark, and we grafted a few things together and managed to put on a field day, and certainly we got a few people there that because it was at Steve Vizard's property, but one of the most important was John Lovett, who had been very mixed up in the oilseed, and he was on the GRDC, and he had a bit of money in his back pocket, so that gave us a building, which, much to the surprise when the Southern Panel came and visited a year or two later, that was there, and that was sort of how it. And at that stage, we'd recruited 10 farming people roundabout, who I think all put in $100 or something, and we sort of did it from there and did all the work and took machinery down there and got it all done. And Col was participating.
So, Col, there were some early challenges. There was a little bit of stuff down our back doors and a little bit of who you knew rather than what you knew. So what were some of the early challenges from your perspective?
Well, from my perspective, Scott, pretty much as Bruce said, lack of funds, but where there's a will, there's a way. I happen to be working with the Department of Agriculture at the time, and there was opportunity to work within the Farm Smart program, which was delivering business planning sessions to farmer groups. And there was a position for an external facilitator, and Southern Farming Systems put their hand up to participate in that. And I put my hand up, even though I was working with the Department of Ag, to be that facilitator. And luckily, the meeting with Bruce Wilson at his place in front of the fire, we negotiated a fantastic salary, Bruce, didn't we? And
Yeah, cut over about 30%.
we came on board, and so that problem was solved. We had enough funds to employ myself, but that was only for 2 to 3 days a week, and we already had a technical person on board who was funded by the Department of Agriculture by the name of Peter Keeley. And Peter did some early work, help the group of farmers to get things done from the site.
Work.
So that they were the very early days. But as Bruce said, we had a lot of support. GRDC came on board very quickly. John Lovett, industry people came on board, donated tractors, etc. And the momentum built very, very, very quickly.
it's very important to emphasise to our current staff that they were different times and that membership actually included going down there and doing various jobs on site, that Peter Keeley, as the technical officer, wasn't the only person that got on top of a tractor or drove around. But George, you were from further geographically afar and could see things changing a little bit. How did your area become involved in this whole early days of Southern Farming Systems?
Yeah, well, as our group is called the Stratham Group, and we were very fortunate to be contacted by the Geelong Group to start up a secondary part of Southern Farming Systems. I don't mean secondary as in not as good as them, but I mean coming along second. And Bruce, and I think it might have been Rowan, came up to our area one night and discussed what another group in the Lake Bolac, Stratham area would be, what the advantage would be to it. And I think there's about 6 farmers formed a committee in our area, and from then on we all followed along together, and it was fantastic.
That started from Malin and Fraser, I think, down at the first field day we had at Narwarri, saying, we can't do this and can't do that, and why not? You better do it. So,
Yep.
George, I can't let you speak without hearing you constantly remind me about the fact that systems is a hugely important part of our name. While we were often, and in the early days, trying to get cropping established in high rainfall zone, lots of people have never lost sight, all of the people here in this room certainly, about the fact that the system's important. You must be extremely chuffed that some of the best and newer systems trials are now happening at Ed Weatherly's place at Stratham.
Yeah, so what Southern Farming Systems has evolved to and what they are trialling, I think, is fantastic. And a system you can't just see it in 1 year's trial. And to have I think it's up to 5-year trial they've run at the moment at Weatherly's, can follow on from what the original people were all on about. And it's evolving.
And Bruce, this has often been about people and relationships. And in fact, your relationship with chairs of the Southern Panel of GRDC have helped even to move SFS to Tasmania. Would you like to tell us some of those stories and your connections in that?
yeah, we a lot was happening in Tassie, and a couple of friends, a lot of school friends and other Marcus friends had sort of over there, and whether the beds fitted into their nearly vegetable growing and the high level crops and things, because they'd been around a couple of times. And anyway, our first visit over there, we somewhere near Cressy, and a bed former was ordered from Geelong from within the paddock. And they went on and took that on and then formed the group. And the other important part, an old acquaintance, Ian McKinnon, became the chair of the Southern Panel. And he was good to be informed with what needed to be done and put things into place. And a lot of it happened. And so that was probably a time when we got a bit closer to GRDC and got good projects going. And because once we'd sort of nearly knew that the beds worked and that improved the soil, and then something that happened then was controlled traffic through GPS became available, which had all sort of fitted to get that system working well, that we went on and a lot more agronomy through when we ultimately hired John Midwood, and it sort of progressed. But certainly, the Tasmanians have been a strong because they needed the varieties that we were getting. Originally I was told, no, you can't, it's not worth breeding. It was about the red wheat thing with the wheat board, and that was one of the battles. And and we bought the program, or bought the clicker, a few of us, with a variety that the department had of red wheat. And then, all the other people came along that were breeding wheat. And so it sort of all meshed in, I guess, and progressed pretty well.
So, Col, education's always formed part of what we do. A few people here could talk forever on the crossover between the department, Marcus, but I can still remember when I was the second chairman of Southern Farming Systems, we had the grand total of only 14 weeks of wages for you in the budget. And consequently, your education that you did, apart from talking at other places, was hugely important in getting people to understand that agriculture formed part of our education system. How did you ever sell that to a lot of the people we sold it to?
Well, pretty easily, I think, Scott. And it really wasn't me that sold it. I think they could see what was happening on the ground. They could see and pick up on the enthusiasm of the farmers involved. And the farmers sold it. My role was purely to try and bring the parties together, seek funding. Like, I remember sitting down over Christmas period one year, and I think I got up 5 projects with the GRDC. And then I thought to myself, how are we going to resource this? Luckily, the funding came through the projects, but then we had, that was the year that really started us off in looking at a range of different things, not just raised beds. So selling it, we had fantastic press. The excitement within the press of Weekly Times, Stock and Land, etc., was palpable. And the reach that they had into communities, not simply within the high rainfall zone of Southern Australia, but to other communities, was fantastic. So this momentum, this excitement was generated from what was happening on the ground.
I'm tempted to be honest with our audience here and say that not everything we've tackled was a success. I can remember the times when we visited the Queenslanders and looked at T-tape that went under the ground, and we suddenly thought we were going to be the biggest broccoli growers in the country. That never eventuated. So you believe that what happened then, Bruce?
There've been probably a succession of fairly damp years, and we thought there was potential to grow vegetables. We did all that stuff. Col's first experiment at Narwarri that he ran was to dry out the subsoil all the way, because that was limiting our cropping. It worked really well because we had 10 years dry after that, and and the whole thing started to function. But yeah, lots of things. And I think one of the most important things, certainly for my family's operations, has been the grain and graze program. And it was very nearly canned. I happened to be up at Beef Week, and that program wasn't, MLA put a lot of money into that. And talking to a couple of influential people in that game, and they said, oh no, it's been terrible up here. And I said, it's the best program that's going to get the system working for the way we farm, with the crops and the animals. And and they sort of came and looked at it and sort of took it on. So it's all just a succession of people and people doing things, but and that's farming. You try things, and some work, some don't, and you've got to move on.
And I suppose that's a message to not just the people watching today and our staff in the other rooms, but just as importantly for our grandchildren into the future, that not everything works, but sometimes a variation of that thing works really well. and you've got to play the game according to how you see it in terms of seasonally as well.
And certainly give it a go.
There's usually someone that can make it work.
Yeah, that's right. There is.
Or might adapt it a bit.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things really started when we Southern Farming was getting a whole lot of people together and worrying about it. You know, to me, farmers at that stage all mostly worked as individuals and sort of like guarding their top secrets of why they survived. And that really was that breadth of knowledge and the professional people that came into it and the commercial people. I think that was terribly important.
And what about those machinery manufacturers we seem to draft in along the way? I can remember Rex Watson, Col. I can remember, and obviously you don't have to remember, they're still there. Nuggies in Winchelsea were keen supporters.
The Queensland Gatton bringing down their sewing bar with all the different things on it.
Bruce Whiteman's not here today with us, but one of the staggering things that needs to be emphasised also was the fact that some of those very early field days, that first one in Nawari where we had wide raised beds and we had raised beds and we had control, one of the things that educators probably thought SFS was mad, was crazy to try and do was to have those things, and yet what people didn't understand, but I'm sure Bruce Whiteman did, is that farmers can see, when they see things and see them working, the uptake is extraordinary. I will never forget those first few field days we had at Nawari in terms of people's adoption.
And Scott, just Bruce pulling out the plants by the roots, and it was just the root matter and things, and that all terminated with yield increases. It was just so self-explanatory.
Told the story, and we know sometimes farmers aren't fantastic at reading books and looking at results, but they certainly saw something live in that situation that was good. Does that apply today, George, with the younger generation at Streatham, at AgriFocus,
Well, I'm sure it does, but maybe it's the next step that they're seeing. And I know technology is helping so much, as in you don't have to be so much hands-on, and back at the start of Southern Farming Systems, there weren't the agronomists that are available either through private business or through farm supply businesses. So, yeah, I'm sure the younger generations out there, the same as it always has been. There's always someone having a go at trying to find something different and move on with their business.
So where to from here, Col? What do you see into the future?
I think the people, the organisation Southern Farming Systems has got now will take it forward, and that may well be quite different to the way I may be looking at things. So it's important to work within the time and have the trained personnel on board, as SFS have, to capture those opportunities, to think into the future. So certainly I can't say to them what they should be doing, but I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job. The evolution of Southern Farming System has been very exciting, Scott, from very, very humble beginnings to, went through a little bit of a lull period for a while, but now I think it's going to be kicking some goals again as it gets tougher to make a quid on the land. You know, SFS started because of a failed system. Livestock was struggling, prices were low. Talking about crop yield back in those days, most farmers budgeted on a tonne to the acre, 2.5 tonnes to the hectare. That is not profitable. We're now looking at 6, 7, 8, 9 tonnes per hectare of cereal. What is the limit? I don't know. It may well go far beyond that. Depends on rainfall and a number of other factors. But we've got to work within our time get the best personnel on board. It's about partnerships. Use the brains of other organisations, bring them on board to help the organisation out. We can't do it alone. So get the researchers, get the extension people, bring them on board and get that partnership working.
Yes, it's interesting that the current board has a policy that we occasionally will lose some of our very good people out into the commercial agronomy world. However, we never factored that we are now losing some of our very good people up to the people that used to be above us, but are now seeking out our people because they've been so well trained and done such a good job. And in finishing, really, that's a credit to what you blokes started. I know there's been some tough nights and days along the way, but equally, Bruce, to finish off, I suppose that it's been pretty good fun as well to see stuff happen.
Yeah, I think it's been, to me, it's, to see this next generation, my family coming on, and they got a much greater level of technical, and certainly with the, that you can find out so much information and sitting on the tractor through the internet and things. But I think farming is still very exciting. It's got a huge amount of potential for big gains yet, and your comment about people moving on, that's bad at the time, good in the future, very good. And I think with all the industries related to agriculture I've been involved in, seems to be quite a few now, the people generally cycle around in it. They don't usually go very far away, but they appear, all the grain traders, they reappear, and all the chemical people, they're still about, and the tractor people. So the industry gains. But to have the resources for an organisation like this to train those younger people and, with a basic understanding of what really can lead to good discoveries of systems that work is just terribly important, because the university used to do it through the, and then they go to the department and that all happened. Don't think that's happening now. It's so it's got to be done.
I think we've assumed that role, absolutely. Well, I thank you very much for your time and for your insights. I get a chance during the dinner to speak for 5 minutes, but it's very much parallels what you three have just said, and thank you for your time.